movie franchisee that began when Tom Cruise was 30 years old, and now the franchisee itself is 30 years old. We are talking about Mission Impossible today. Well, somewhere between these wonderful movies, Tom Cruise became the biggest action star and movie star of the world. And well, the fandom and the stunts of this very franchisee have only gotten crazier. We are talking about Mission Impossible and my favorite moments from Mission Impossible. Well, Mission Impossible, the final reckoning is out now. Well, Christopher McQuarrie has directed 4 installments of the Mission Impossible franchisee, which include the likes of Mission Impossible Rogue Nation, Mission Impossible Fallout, Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning, and now Mission Impossible The Final Reckoning. Well, Mission Impossible has had some of the most iconic directors helming the movies. We've had the legendary Brian De Palma directing Mission Impossible, the first part of this wonderful movie franchisee. We had John Woo directing Mission Impossible 2. We had J.J. Abrams directing Mission Impossible 3. And we had Brad Bird directing Mission Impossible 4. Well, it's time to talk about my favorite top 10 moments from the Mission Impossible franchisee. And let's start with number 10. The opening scene of Mission Impossible 3. Of course, J.J. Abrams directed Mission Impossible 3. And we have a confrontation scene between the late Philip Seymour Hoffman and Tom Cruise. And basically, Tom Cruise is held hostage with Lucia's character, which is, of course, played wonderfully by Michelle Monaghan. Well, we have Philip Seymour Hoffman and his character Davian, who's threatening Tom Cruise to kill him if he doesn't tell him where the pigeon's foot is. And it's a really menacing scene. Tom Cruise is really acting with his eyes, and the way it's directed, there's so much of tension. Well, coming up next, I have to talk about one of my favorite moments from Mission Impossible Fallout. This movie, of course, has Henry Cavill in it, and there's a wonderful bathroom fight scene where we see Henry Cavill loading his arms and brawling in the bathroom like no one's business. This is one of my favorite moments from this very franchisee, and let's move forward to the 8th favorite moment of mine from this very franchisee. Let's do that. Well, my 8th favorite moment from this very franchisee is that of Tom Cruise running on the rooftop in Mission Impossible Fallout. We, of course, have Benji, who's giving him navigation like he always does. Well, there are some really funny exchanges between the both of them, and we see Tom Cruise running on rooftops, running through offices, and yes, all in all, a really iconic scene. Well, let's move forward to my 7th favorite moment from the Mission Impossible franchisee. Well, my 7th favorite moment is also from Mission Impossible Fallout, and that is the helicopter chase scene where we have Tom Cruise hanging off the helicopter in which Henry Cavill's character August Walker is sitting, and Tom Cruise hanging off a helicopter, need I say more? Okay, so at number 6, one of my favorite moments from the Mission Impossible franchisee is that in Mission Impossible Rogue Nation, well, we have a chase sequence where we have Ethan Hunt and Benji who are chasing Ilsa's character. And well, they are in their car, and they have a really funny eye contact with Luther and William's character. And then there's a whole moment where Tom Cruise's car goes in reverse, and the both of them end up in a parking lot very far away. So that's a really funny moment. And well, my 5th favorite moment from the Mission Impossible franchisee is that from Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol. Well, we have Lea Seydoux, who's done a wonderful job playing the role of Sabine Moreau. We have Ethan and William's character who are in a meeting. Well, they're trying to give away the diamonds, and the whole confrontation that takes place right after one of my favorite scenes that I'm going to come to later is that of the Burj Khalifa scene. And let's move forward to the 4th favorite moment of mine from the Mission Impossible franchisee. Well, we've already spoken about a brilliant opening sequence from Mission Impossible 3. Well, one of my other favorite opening scenes from the Mission Impossible franchisee is that of Mission Impossible Rogue Nation, where we have Ethan who's hanging off a cargo plane, and well, Tom Cruise did I think 5 to 10 takes of that. Well, kudos to Tom Cruise for pulling it off, and let's move forward to my 3rd favorite moment from the Mission Impossible franchisee, and that's from Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol. We have Ethan Hunt, who's escaped from the hospital. He's basically taken his belt and he's hung on the wire, and then he changes his disguise by picking up clothes randomly, taking a phone, and that's classic Mission Impossible for you. Well, this look also made it to the poster of Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol. Well, let's move forward to my 2nd favorite moment from the Mission Impossible franchisee, and that's from Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning. Well, we have Tom Cruise who's trying to get to a train and ends up on a cliff, and we have Benji giving him navigations again, and he's on a bike. He rides through the cliff and has to jump on the train. Something that has become so iconic. Well, this is one of my favorite moments. Well, now it's time for my most favorite moment from the Mission Impossible franchisee, and that's of the whole Burj Khalifa sequence where we have Tom Cruise who has to climb the Burj Khalifa and get up. Well, after Jane and William help Tom Cruise come inside the room, we have Benji who walks up and says that was really difficult, but I managed to do it, and that was so funny. Well, these are some of my favorite moments from the Mission Impossible franchise. I'm really excited for Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. Would love to know what you think about the movie. Well, it's not the end of this episode yet. This part of the show is called If You Like This, What Can You Watch? And I would suggest you watch John Wick 4, and here's why. Well, John Wick uncovers a path to defeating the High Table, but before he can earn his freedom, Wick must face off against a new enemy with powerful alliances across the globe and forces that turn old friends into foes. Well, that brings us to the end of today's episode of Binge Watch. If you're liking what you're doing, please like this video so that the algorithm pushes it further. Comment down your favorite moments from the Mission Impossible franchise and how excited are you for Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning, and share this with family and friends. And we'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.
94.3 Radio 1.